Okay. Well, I want to welcome everybody to the Michael Gibson Gallery on the last day of Angie Quick's show that we've been enjoying for the last month. We're in the Woodman Room, named after Ross and Marion Woodman. We thought it would be a nice place to host this talk since they were champion of London artists for decades and really encouraged healthy dialogue about the arts. And we're really happy to welcome both Angie and Susan Day here today to talk to us in conversation. I'm introducing people. I hope I'm not really going to be part of the conversation, but I'm here to help and to help the conversation along if we need to. So I want to introduce, I'm Jennie Kraehling. I'm the Associate Director here at the Michael Gibson Gallery. Angie Quick, you were born in Calgary, and you moved to London when you were a teenager?
Yeah, when I was 18.
Bringing your family. So for the past decade or so, she's built up a very strong artistic practice here in London. She's self-taught. This is our third solo show with Angie, and other recent exhibitions that she's enjoyed in town have been solo at the Mackintosh Gallery and at the Museum London, and both galleries also own Angie's work. And Susan Day, you were born in London, Ontario, which I found out today. And has been exhibiting extensively since the late 80s and has a very strong private studio practice, like a personal practice in clay, and as well as working on major public installation commissions. Most recently, she's worked for the city of Lethbridge through a collaboration with the Mackintosh Gallery. You've worked on one at Care Point here on York Street, a 600 square foot wall in collaboration with kids at the Children's Museum, and she's currently working on major projects with both the City of Lethbridge and BC Transit, a major project with BC Transit. So she's very, very busy. So Has Love Made You the Enemy is the title of Angie's show that is on at the gallery. You guys can come down in front if you like. And Susan and I were talking a bit this last week just about how honest the paintings are.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could, and you've also described this body of work as your most personal body of work.
Yeah, I regret saying that.
You regret saying that, okay. Because I've used it over and over and over again. Can you just talk a little bit about kind of how you came about the start of this body of work?
Yeah, I also felt like jolted as you said the title of the show. I kind of forgot that was the title of the show, and I felt like, oh, that was like kind of wounding. How did the show start, or the work?
Yeah, like how did you come up, because there's a departure from the previous body of work.
Yeah,
not a departure, but a continuation.
Yeah, like last year, what would that be, like 2024 in January, I felt like really burnt out. It's kind of like important for me to recognize that things have like kind of gone quite quickly in my career in the last 4 years. Like I was used to just being like a loner working in the studio and nobody cared about me. And then I got lots of attention and had my first gallery with you guys, and then got another gallery, and then all this other stuff. And I'm always somebody who's like prolific and can make a lot of work, and I was always being like, yeah, I can do that. I can make the work. And I love showing up. Like being in the studio is my favorite thing. But I was so burnt out by January of last year, and I was just like for a whole month just in bed and like on playing Stardew Valley and watching shows and reading books. And so that's kind of where like a lot of the bedroom stuff came from, was this idea of the bed being a place of creativity and solace, and kind of like re-identifying what is important in being an artist and why I wanted to be an artist from the very beginning. Because the business part of it and the art industry part of it will try to like kill your soul. So this was like kind of a show that took you, well, I wanted to bring people into the intimacy of like my life and my feelings. And sometimes like all of my work is personal, but sometimes in a way that's not so obvious. And this one, it's personal in the sense that it's like, those are my objects. I can identify these things. And at the same time, it's like also not my bed. So it's like this weird place where it's like me and not me at the same time. And then through all of that, I was also going through this like breakup. And so it's this like heartbreak. So it's like the heartbreak of like wanting to be an idealist and an artist, and then living in the world that we live in, and then also like that ties so well to like the romantic ideal. So that's the beginnings. Was hurt, a lot of hurt.
A lot of hurt.
Yeah, but then by the end of making the show, that's where the disco balls came in, because I suddenly felt like amazing. Like I felt really like revived, and like I reconnected to like what matters most is being in the studio. And so like showing up here today, this is fun, this is cool, having openings is awesome, having people connect to the work is very important. But like me in the studio is the essential part of why I do what I do. Yeah, and that's by the end of making this body of work, I was like, that fire was back. What about for you?
Well, I actually just learned so much about your work. Like seriously, like so much, because we've known each other, and we've met at openings, and we had a good conversation this week, which we kept saying we have to stop talking because we needed to save stuff for today. Mm-hmm. But the paintings themselves are like hypersexual to me, and the way you talk about it, it's not like that.
No, because
it's not.
No.
And so I think, and I actually, when I was talking to Jennie, I kind of was like, oh, okay, I guess I always assumed that you were a character in the paintings, and then we were talking about, oh, maybe this is all not, and I really love that it gives me those questions, and that I'm kind of, when you look at it different times, you can see different things. But getting back to the work or whatever, like I'm the same. Like I love the studio. It's the only thing I know how to do, like it's the only thing. So I'm basically there every day of the week. My whole existence is around that. And that's a really super luxurious place to be in, that I can do that. Like I worked for a long time. I worked as a waitress, and I worked on the side doing my work. And, I guess I've just, things have gone like this. And I also have had been crazy busy the last, probably 6 years doing things, because every year I've had a major commission, like a major public art commission. And then at the same time, kind of kept this ball rolling with keeping the personal work going. So that's been a big, it's very challenging to do that. It's very, very, the public art things are kind of the means. And then then I can keep the other things going. And now I'm getting to a point with these larger commissions. It's actually Edmonton right now, not Lethbridge.
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
That's okay. No, it's, so Lethbridge was a few years ago, and then I'm doing a Pedway in Edmonton right now. That's an Edmonton public art project. And, but just keeping those things going, and the logistics of it, and it's a huge logistical piece to get to kind of make my vision and my original drawing and the concept that I've won the contest for, to get these things, but to make that drawing into something that's 700 square feet, or in Vancouver it's going to be 1,500 square feet. It's like these huge things. And now I have people working with me in the studio, and it's like all these balls going, and it seems like I can do it, it's working, I can do it, but the goal is usually those days where you're in the studio and you're just working on personal things, and you're having that time, and even that time that that month of kind of melancholy that you had in your bed after a breakup and exhaustion and all this, as difficult as it is, I think I've gotten to a point now where I see those times, and they come. They're going to, there's going to be another thing like that's like an expansion joint. It's shitty, and it feels terrible, and you're kind of torn apart at the beginning. But you must have known that too. Partway through, it's like, oh yeah, this is pretty rich. There's a richness in that sadness, or that overwhelm and stuff like that. You're, maybe you can't get the paintbrushes out, but you can sit and play on your Switch lying in bed, and you can do these things. But there is, that is a big part of the artist's life, that knowing when to stop, or when to kind of, I have this really good friend who's a neuroscientist, and he said to me, it's the smartest thing. He said, my big job is keeping myself limber, and limber in all the ways. Physically, emotionally, intellectually, socially, just kind of keeping it all going. And And maybe it's not the same thing for every artist, but for me, that's important.
Yeah, like there's a kind of training that happens in like a daily, monthly, yearly sense to it of like keeping in touch with yourself. It's but I wanted to get back to something that you had said while you were talking, and you were saying that like getting to work in the studio is a luxury, and it is a luxury. But I think a lot about this because as artists, we work really hard. Like a lot of the stuff that I do is just unpaid. Like I'm not getting paid.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ever going to get paid. But I do it because I love it. And I think it's important to like identify the fact that art making is important within our culture, within our society, and to value that what we do is, even though it's a vocation, it's work in itself. Because sometimes I think about this too a lot, where it's like, oh,
Like it's not a calling. It's not. I don't feel like it's a calling, or
And I
anything.
do.
It's. I don't feel like it is, but I do feel like I get that it's hard work. When I said it, I feel like it's the only thing I know how to do, and I basically
which is like
don't,
a calling almost.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Maybe you
Like
just
it-
like
but-
hate.
but-
Like the thing is, like
But
I
that
was.
sounds like I don't know. It sounds like being a priest or a
No, but I
nun or
love it. Okay,
something.
so like I was raised by two atheists, and so like it's in me to be not thinking of that way. But here I was given this dialogue with art. Like as soon as I started painting when I was 16, I felt like I was in conversation with this other. And obviously I was raised in a household where that was not the case. It was all secular. And so it felt like a dirty secret of just being like, I'm having this magical experience constantly, and then to dedicate my life to this magical experience and this dialogue I have. And so I get the like not wanting to maybe name it that way, and you can just say that you have no other skills other than what you
No,
do, but
I-
I'm
okay.
going to call it a calling.
I think my initial impulse to make work came from like a really tumultuous upbringing, like cuckoo tumultuous, and trying to make unravel it. And so it was the only way that I could stay kind of above water emotionally, and I'm still like that now. I'm still like that now, is to spend some time making those marks, and even like with my work now where I'm kind of carving into these vessels and I'm filling it with like a color and then I'm scraping it away. There's something about that, like the slowness. People come in the studio, I always get people who work with me and they're always trying to make it more efficient. And I'm like, fuck that. I don't want efficiency. Like efficiency isn't what I want. Like efficiency, I can see the difference in it if I'm trying to go too fast. But I think that all I'm trying to get at is I think like for you, maybe it's a calling. For me, it's a way to unravel things.
I think like we're saying the same things, and we just don't want to say it the same way.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that.
I'm totally good with that too. But I think that it's
Like we're
it's-
both passionate about what we do,
Yeah.
and we're pouring our whole selves into
and we're
it.
documenting our own existences.
Yeah, and
know?
it's like,
And-
where's the place you want to be the most every day is the studio.
for sure.
Yeah.
And I would rather, it's lovely to have everyone here and all the interests that I have at any time and social life, but my sweet spot is just on my own.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we're the exact
Like
same in
100%.
that.
Like it's just on my own in the studio doing things. And and I think that's, it's interesting though that we have been able to make a life of it, and it is a hard life. Like it's a difficult life. Like there's no paycheck put into your bank account every 2 weeks. There's nothing like that. And when you might make. I had a really good. I was in an art fair in New York, and I had a great weekend there, and it was more income than I probably had for 2 years, and it's probably nothing compared to most people. Like it's nothing at all. And I think. And I actually don't even, I don't really worry about the money. And like, it does tend to work out. Like there's, I'm paying interest on things sometimes, for sure. I'm not in that luxurious position where you don't pay interest. And I remember my father, who was very well off, saying, interest is something you earn. It's not something you pay. So I'm like swimming against the stream with that familial thing. So.
And it's interesting because like, with the dedication to our practice, it's a lot of money to make art, to be dedicated to this, right?
Yeah, it
And
is.
so it's interesting, like I will spend thousands of dollars so I can be alone in the studio making these paintings, and it means so, like, there is no other way than just that. And there's a lot of like magical thinking that kind of comes with being an artist, where I'm just like, I'll make money. It will happen.
And it does, it tends to do. And, we're not missing meals. Like, we're doing okay. Like, we're both.
I'm going to my mom's.
Yeah, I don't have that. I'm taking care of my kids. So, yeah, and I never had that. Like, I never had that as a young artist. So, but it made me really scrappy. And I think, like, I was an excellent waitress. Like, I made a really good living doing that in, 15 or 20 hours a week. But, yeah, it's just interesting. Like, it does work out. And I think.
But I wouldn't want to I like that all my time is my time. Like, I decide what I do with each day. And, like, obviously with more things happening with shows and stuff, you have to decide what happens within the week. But most of the time, it's all designated to being, like, how much time can I get to be in the studio to the fullest every single day?
Yeah. And I'm the same for sure. And I actually do these week things where I start, if I'm at one Sunday, I start at the next Sunday. And I work my way back, seeing what I want to have done on that Sunday, and how am I going to do it. And I'm pretty good at getting that done now. But
It's like time traveling.
it is. It's a bit manic, but I think that my community engaged projects take me more out into the community. So that has been. I just feel with the work I'm doing, it's really important to have community input in my work. Not with the vessels, but with the big things. So that's kind of a different, another thing that I'm balancing. And I do feel like as artists, we do have a responsibility to the community or to the work, like to reflect it somehow. And I think we both are in really different ways. Like maybe more similar in your paintings and my vessels, but kind of in an obtuse way. But I think it's really interesting. And what we're doing in 2025 makes absolutely no sense. Like, it doesn't make any sense to be in any, like, there's no metric that you could put out that would make it, being an artist right now make sense. Like,
I feel the total opposite.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, well, I guess the metric just for meaning, but the metric, like, in the rest of the world is all about consumerism.
No, but I just think that, like, this is the most important time to let people's imagination, creativity to kind of push against. Like, the whole point of art is to give the idea of a dream that doesn't exist yet.
Oh, that's not my idea of art.
Yeah, and so for me, and so like for me, art is political. Everything about it is, and so it's the idea that something that doesn't yet exist could exist in the mind, and to allow somebody to enter that. I'm really okay. I feel like what I'm doing is very political. Yeah. But isn't that to dream? To be political is to say that you want something
or to
other
reflect
than?
and put a spotlight on something that isn't getting attention. That's so I don't think that's necessarily dreaming. That's reality. Like, it's like, this is reality, rather than I feel like a lot of my earlier.
But to talk about a thing is to say, to make it other than. Like, you would just accept it and no art would be made about it, but because you are pointing at it in a way, you're acknowledging it and saying that this is something that needs to be done about.
Yeah, I guess that seems circular. I don't quite like it did, but
So how are you doing that with your paintings?
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
How am I doing it with my paintings? Well, I would just in the very act of doing it. Like, in living my life by being somebody who thinks and feels and then is, like, interacting with the world, then I have a vision, and that is placed within the work. Like, even when you said you saw my work as being very sexual, well, I don't even think of it that way, because to me, I'm already embodying something past the kind of shame that we already exist within. And so when you're confronted with it, you're confronted with something that's residing within you, residing within our society, but I'm kind of maybe pointing in a different direction, or even maybe pointing at those things. And I think the level of, like, intimacy that's within my work is something that we shy away from. Like, we have, like, a certain kind of confessionalism within on the internet and within our, like, how we interact with each other, but my work's about tenderness, and I think we lack a lot of tenderness in our everyday lives and in a general kind of political sense. So, yeah, I think I imbue that in my work and in my persons.
It's funny because I I would say the same things about how I feel with my work, especially like the drawings that I'm doing on the vessels and my earlier work that was, very strongly about the experience of being the daughter of a severely disabled mother and kind of that shift of power. And I don't even know if you know about that work.
Mm-mm.
And so that's where, I actually, because I did all of this work when I was like, in my 20s or something like that. It was very well received. I got big Canada Council grants and showed all over the place and in the States and things. And I was doing drawings that were drawings on clay tablets of the apparatus that my mother had used for the business of daily living. And some of them were like imagining her as a sexual being too. And so these were on clay tablets, and I really loved the material in that it was, soft and pliable to work with, and that it could break. And when the pieces break, I don't discard them. I still think, because that's part of the nature of a body. Mm-hmm. And I was, really trying to show a tenderness and draw attention to it. So I think that I don't know. It's all confusing to me sometimes, and I feel like when I was doing all that work you talked about shame and confessionality, and I felt like that work that I was doing was very confessional, because this upbringing where we were definitely the other, our family was the other. And my mother basically wasn't able to leave the house because there was no, there wasn't graduated curbs. There wasn't paratransit, there was nothing like that. And so I was doing this stuff, showing it, and then my siblings had real difficulty with that. They didn't like it, so they felt shame. And it was I understand that. And I was like, it was pretty out there work. It was actually, I was thinking about this, it was similarly, like sometimes I think older populations looking at some of your paintings they find it a bit shocking. And I think that early work I did was similarly shocking, and people would kind of go, oh yeah, and I love the luscious. I feel like your paintings are so luscious, and tender is a really nice word for them too.
Because I don't make them to be shocking at all. That's like never my sensibility within it. I have a lot of humor. Like, I think a lot of things in life are funny, and I like to point at the funniness of life, and then like the sensuality and the body in itself, and the like the fallibility of the body.
Yeah, and all the beautiful pinks. Yeah. Like, it's really, they're like really, they like from I think that was the first time I came into this iteration of Michael Gibson, was to see that show. And I met you the first time and I was just so drawn to the bodies, the lusciousness of it. And I didn't quite understand it. And I guess there's a lot of paintings I don't understand. I was drawn to it, and this is a really big compliment I'm giving you. And prepare yourself. Yeah, okay. No, I was drawn to it in the way I'm drawn to Philip Guston's paintings.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
It had the same sort of, there was like a gravitas to it, but sometimes now I think, oh, is it just, like, sometimes it's interesting having the artist talk about it, because I thought that there was an intention of shock.
No, like, other than like the way that I'm very honest in how I live and how I see things, and I take a lot of information in. Mm-hmm. And so if it's ever shocking, I would put the shock always on that's coming from the viewer.
For sure, you're right.
But for me, it's usually what someone finds shocking is what I found humorous.
Yeah.
Or and even cute or
like
something.
You seem to be very confident, like a very confident person. And I think you're self-taught, you've done, and I'm also predominantly self-taught, but I'm not confident like that. Like, and I'm still, like, I'm a carefully, I move very carefully, and most of the opportunities I have had with my work now have come with someone else pushing me into them. Like the New York connection here, like showing here was, I didn't pursue it. It came, it's like, that's how I've worked. And I probably need to take control of that a bit more. But
For me, it's like I really believe in my work and the paintings, and the best way for the paintings, like I am the expression, the walking, living as I'm living expression for the paintings. And so I can be a conduit for that. And then, so why not be confident? Because I really believe like the painting always has my back and is like my greatest friend in a way, or companion. And so I feel, I feel a sense of purpose kind of through everything.
yeah. I feel like that with just my trajectory as an artist, like very purposeful, very, very, it's meaningful. And if I can tell my own stories or stories of other people with my work, I think that's, I think it's a wonderful thing right now. And it's big, like it's bigger than me, that stuff.
And I was going to ask about if the paintings are representations of you. Is that, or a symbol of that? So is that why you're using figures? Like, is that why you're a figurative-based painter? What draws you to painting the figure?
I would say
Susan uses figuration as well in her work. So
I would say I'm an
curious about that.
expressive painter. And so it's the expression of feeling. And so oftentimes that can come out as looking like the body interacting with each other, but it's not always like that. They're brush strokes. And sometimes there's suggestions of bodies that people see that aren't ones that I put in there. And I like that play within it. I don't, as much as like, yes, this is like my most personal work. It comes through me and it is from me in many ways, but I don't really see it as like personal narratives that I'm telling. I kind of feel like it's like this satellite painting where it's like I'm picking up on signals and then things are coming through me, and it's I want to go more into it being like a magical experience, something kind of ghosty that's happening, because we've kind of pushed art towards being very intellectual, very academic, and we can parse everything apart to mean something and be something. And I would rather that it was something spooky that was happening, and that's what it feels like when I'm in the studio. So yeah.
I feel like, though, upstairs there's some pretty, I think it's a narrative that can be interpreted from each viewer. But I feel like there's some paintings up there that really tell a very strong, solid narrative.
And I take no responsibility.
But are you wanting us to come to it and to kind of
play
and make the story?
I want people to come and feel something. I think so much people feel afraid to go into art museums, art galleries. They become institutions of needing a degree, needing to know something, needing to know somebody, needing to have money in your pockets. And that's not what art is. Like, art is the thing that makes us connect with each other, want to live, have bigger ideas. And so I want somebody to feel something. So I want to make paintings that are accessible and for the people. I want somebody to come off the street and say, to laugh at a painting, to say, I've been there, I feel something. That I would rather that than anything other than saying that. Like, I do have art historical references in the works, but it's because I'm a nerd and that's something that I enjoy. And I like the idea, like when you were talking about even just your calendar and this like kind of time travel sense of it. Well, oil painting, and it must be the same with you within ceramics, is like time travel. Like, it holds a whole history within itself. So I am painting now in the present, but I'm in connection with hundreds of years of other people painting, and I'm also in connection with hundreds of years of people painting within the future. And it's like, that's what I like, these little winks at the past, because they're also winks to the future.
Do you feel like that with clay?
I do. It's interesting because I was just talking to someone about the history, like it's a Toronto curator, and we were talking about something like the Art Toronto thing, and apparently next year they don't want anything to do with the vessel. Like, they're not letting anything to do with the vessel, and for new galleries coming in. And I was like, that is crazy. Like, it's like it's almost like saying no canvases. No canvases.
So it sounds sacrilegious.
Like, it was like it seems so myopic and but yeah, no, I feel like the techniques I'm using, and definitely there's historical references in some of my work, and like, we're both really big readers, and those are big, like, inspiration places for me. Like I'm often writing down something from something I've read, or when I get to the studio, rereading some passage of a book I'm reading, and that's like it's almost like just a trigger. Like it's like I read something, it's a trigger, and I'm going for a feeling. Like I'm looking, like that's what I want my if we're calling it my personal pieces and the community engaged pieces or something, the personal pieces, I want them to evoke a feeling. And I think there's a sparseness about them. And the sparseness is something that relates to historical ceramics. Like there's a line in those pieces, like a very fine line that relates to historical ceramics. And I can tell my story through that. And it's the same, like it's like I'm telling, I've got these little vignettes of narratives on vessels, and to me it's clear as anything what the story is, and they're all connected. Like if, all of the pieces are, it's like a timeline, all the vessels I'm making, and it's all, like chapters or verses of the same story. But I think that I'm interested in how someone else coming in and looking at, because, no one ever knows my story exactly, so they can look at it and they can take from it what they want, and I really like that because it's like another expansion joint. Like they can look at it, they can take from it what's appropriate for them, and like I do think we make the work, and like you said, like I have no responsibility for what they take from the story, and I feel like that too. Like I'll put it out there. I'm a little like slow to describe the meaning of every single piece that I put up. Like there might be little vignettes I'd like to talk about, but mostly I think that's on the viewer or the critic.
It becomes the viewers.
Yeah,
as soon as
it's
they're
like I've given
looking
it
at
to
Yeah.
you. You
Yeah.
can deal with it. Someone can write about it, all those things. And I can just stand back and it's like you've put this thing out in the world and it's got a life of its own. And
But sometimes I will tell people they're wrong.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. I would too, for sure. And yeah, like 'cause sometimes it's so wrong and it's like, are you out of your mind that this is what you're seeing? Yeah.
Yeah. There's
Yeah, for
there's
sure.
a fine line.
There's a fine line. I know. It's a crazy life, though.
But I think in this body of work, Angie, it's more detailed. Like we're sitting amongst paintings from the last 3-4 years. But here you're putting signs and symbols in the paintings. Like we see the mirror balls, we see the computer screen, we see the cell phone, the pillows. Can you talk about the pillows?
You really want to
you want
push
to.
me into a corner.
No, not
No, it's fine. So the pillows, my mom makes these really gorgeous pillows, and she worked on them while she was recovering from being unwell. And so then they're like these mandalas, and I have them all over my house. I've given them to some of my friends. All my siblings have them. They're gorgeous. I love them. And so they're on the bed with me. And so in a lot of the paintings, I started putting them in. I also hate geometrics, but I love these pillows. So it's interesting having these kind of orbs. And I like the idea of what a mandala is. It's a space for people to meditate on. And so in the paintings with all these feelings and this chaos or whatever, there's the solace of the mandala and the comfort of that. And in a way, it's like a portrait of my mom, or a little piece of my mom that I put into the work. So some of it is personal.
But I think it's so interesting because, like, there's like an abstractness like this in the paintings upstairs, and then areas that have more clarity to them. But those pillows, it's like the second you see them, you know that pillow. You know that pillow, and I thought it's and,
Well, you
and
know
the-
the feel of the
you
pillow,
do,
too, the little
exactly.
maneuvers.
And
Yeah.
even that it was made like as your mother's recovering from something, it's like those are stories that are in a lot of people's houses, like cherished objects that they have. So it doesn't surprise me that that's the story with those. But I think that there are some of the details in the paintings upstairs that are like the little moments of clarity certainly seem extremely sexual.
Tell me
Like
more.
the hand coming through the crotch.
Yeah, but so I was doing the psychic watercolors the other night, and there was a mom, and she had her 2-year-old on her lap, and that was the first time I got to do a psychic reading of a baby, which I really enjoyed. And the baby looked at the painting and said to her mom that her hand is on her pee-pee. And I thought, yeah, So?
That's
And this 2-year-old is just like,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's sexual in one way, and then in the other, they're just bodies doing
Yeah.
bodily things.
And there's not, like, sexuality is an incredible, important part of our lives. And I think it's really important and luscious, like, to show it, and then all the different things. Sometimes I've wondered with the paintings, because, like, you're kind of in the traditional period of people's lives where they are more highly sexualized. And then as you get older, it's still, like, in my experience as a 63-year-old, it's still a really important part of my life. I still have a sexual life. I still, like to be touched and like to touch. It's different. Like, it's got a different, it's just taken a different view. It's not as important or not as heightened, perhaps. But I wonder, as you get older, if the work will change like that.
Yeah, because, like, I almost feel like by painting the sexuality within it, it's almost saying it's a thing. It can happen, it's there, but it's also not the most important thing. And I don't know, like, there's like a
that's all we're
mundaneness.
seeing. All of your work that we're seeing is in the bedroom, basically. It seems like it's all in the bedroom, or it feels like that. And I think it would be interesting to see something that, like, I feel like that, like, and maybe I'm wrong, and I honestly, like, I'm not an Angie Quick scholar, but I've really looked into it.
Yeah, like, I'm
really interested, and I really like. I hope it's coming across how much I really
no,
like.
No,
your
and
paintings.
I deny it, like, to the final, like, that my work is like people like to say everything I do is very horny and erotic and sexual, and I definitely like to play off of that and make jokes with it. And I also just don't see it. Like, when I'm in the studio, I make the painting, but I'm not going like, oh, sex, horny, horny, horny. I'm making these paintings, but it's like they happen, and I'm like, oh, cool. There's a bunch of bodies doing some things, and those bodies are maybe making other people horny or uncomfortable or thinking about their own sexuality. Yeah. But, like, we live in an age where you can access porn on your phone at any moment. You can see probably your neighbors on porn doing things. It's just so immediate. Yeah. We can meet up with people, but I mean, like, but there's a coldness to it. So painting has so much heart, and I want to talk about the heart of it. And so if the heart looks horny in the paintings, that's fine, but it's not. I don't know. It's just I'll say it's just not that. And, like, someone can say I'm failing because everyone's only seeing it as sex, but I'm gonna keep on going.
No, I think you're doing exactly the right thing. If you're the painter, like, you're the driver of the boat of this.
But a lot of it's also like it's about the paint.
Yeah,
and so
and you're, like, the way you're using the paint is like. It's beautiful. It's really sublime.
Well, oil paint is sexy.
It is. Oil paint's amazing. Like, the smell of an oil painter studio is, like, one of the best things in the world.
Yeah,
it's the best. Like, it's an amazing
But it's
thing.
like slick and how it moves, and there's, like, a grittiness, a dirtiness, and, like, but also,
like,
and it's gorgeous.
It's got life. Like, it really has a lot of life to it. And I think, I think they're just interesting. Like, I'm kind of, things I've thought about over the years with seeing your work. It's it definitely really compels me. It's really interesting to me. And, I don't know what of my work you have seen.
I've seen,
But community work or other work?
No, I've seen your work, like your vessels and stuff. I'm more familiar. Like, I know your community work in the sense that I bike by it and see it in that way. And it does add gorgeous value to, like, my everyday life. Yeah. But I know your work. But what I find interesting is when we chatted on the phone, you said, I identify as a painter. So I was wondering if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't say that. I said, I think I'm probably a painter.
Okay,
something
sure.
like that, yeah. But no, and that's what I want to do. Like, I have a show coming up at Museum London, and I'm working on really large pieces, and I'm trying to get back to my original small tablets that were very painterly. Like, I didn't make a plan to make community engaged work. It kind of fell on my lap, and it's kind of taken over my life. It's been really wonderful, but it's a big job. So I'm trying to take more time to be more painterly. Like, I think the way I think, my sketchbooks are basically little painting books, and
Like you paint in them, like
yeah,
watercolor?
yeah.
Because my notebooks are all writing. I don't draw
Like I do, I have like
anything.
one of each. I have
okay.
I do both every day pretty much, and I'm using the acrylic inks to paint with those because I get more color. But I'm just really drawn to painting at this stage in my career, and I actually haven't started to do paintings. I'm still, kind of committed to doing large ceramic works. I love the medium of ceramics. I don't really like some of the technical stuff about it. I'm getting a bit worn out. I'm not worn out. I'm just a bit bored with the hassles of drying things, getting into the kiln. They warp, all these things happen. And the energy use of it is like, it's pretty ridiculous. I could get solar power in my studio. I could do those things, but maybe it's just I'm getting older and I want to transition my practice a little bit. So, you could all be witnesses to me saying that I want to do that. We'll see if it happens. I don't know. But I do, like drawings are a very important part of my work, and the drawings could lead to painting. So.
It's funny because when I think of painting, I think of color.
Yeah.
So like Angie, for example, like the colors these new colors that you've kind of introduced
Yeah.
to us. Because we did a studio visit, and then you had to inform me a few weeks later that there was an entirely new color introduced to the paintings.
Yes.
Can you talk about kind of the blues and the pinks?
The blues. Yeah. So something embarrassing happened while I was working in the studio. Sometimes when I'm making work, I don't realize that a part of me is coming out into the work, and sometimes I don't even realize it until it's in the exhibition. This one, I didn't necessarily do this on purpose, but I kind of caught on to something and I didn't enjoy it. So some of the paintings started looking like my ex-boyfriend's apartment. And I decided I didn't want them to look like that. So I wanted them to be nighttime scenes. So this blue kind of came into it because when I go pee in the middle of the night, like at 4 a.m., I used to always think about dying. And that would be like the time of just thinking about death. But now when I get up, I just think, what a gorgeous, great time this is. And everything is cast in this blue light. And so I wanted to bring this intimacy and this also like newfound happiness in the middle of the night between sleeps into the painting.
Yeah, nice.
So that's what happened with the pink. I like right now, all the paintings I've just started in the studio are going to be hot pink, baby pinks, monochrome. So that's continuing on. And these ones, like I notice I have a lot of baby pink items within my life that I'm very fond of. And so those kind of popped up within the work. But then also, and I didn't do this on purpose, not every, but almost every painting has a hot pink object that's like doing a thing in each painting. And I was like, cool. And I don't really understand that. Like in the one with the pig, the knife is hot pink. The girls, their eyes are hot pink. And it felt like this like little signal. Like even when you were saying that, like my paintings are very expressive, but then there's these images of things that I consider still points. They're kind of like a safety place for the viewer to be like, oh fuck, what's going on right now? Oh, I feel safe right here.
Yeah, my eye can go there.
Yes, I can go here.
Yeah.
I can go here. And some of the things that you land on, you're like, oh fuck, I don't want to be looking at that actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the pink eyes are so interesting in the paintings. Up there.
Oh yeah, that was kind of like this like rose-colored glasses idea,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
so like
That's
let's
a good-
just
yeah.
slap those on the eyes and stuff. But I like how it looks, and then we're always like, like the windows of the soul or something, and it's just like the eyes are freaky. But yeah, I actually think about painting not as much as people see me as a colorist. I think about painting in movement, as movement. It's like, because like that's why one of the reasons I like to paint big, and like I like the brush strokes, I like the movement. It's one of the reasons why I like to work in oil paint, is because you're working wet on wet, and it's so much about movement. But yeah, the color, it does come just innately through me. So it's like I don't even know if I think so much about color. It's just like it's happening.
Right.
And then, but for the paintings to be working for me, it's about the movement.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting because you, like, everything you've been saying about work is like it's like you're a vector. You're just, you're just carrying it from someplace else. And it's just such a different way of making art from how I.
Like, I feel like I'm in conversation, in dialogue with the paintings while I'm painting. Like, we are having a relationship, and this something is happening between us. And so there is the me that's coming to it, and then there's the alien something of the painting.
And your meeting.
And I love the meeting of it,
Yeah.
and I love the dialogue of that. So I very much see it as dialogue.
Yeah, I guess that's something I feel when I'm working. I was just this morning in my studio working on some new vessels, and I'm to the point where I'm drawing on these vessels that I've built with a pencil before I carve it, and that it starts to happen. That's where it starts to happen, and it's like, oh yeah, it kind of takes on a life of its own, and
You invite surprise into the work.
Yeah, like it's like I have a few like things that are like I make lists of objects that I want to do in the pieces. So those are like my work talking points or something for the piece, and then as soon as they're there, it goes away. Like it's got a life of its own.
Yes,
it just carries you away, and you're in that.
Yeah, like I'll have an image in my mind when I feel like I'm ready to paint, and it's less like an image and it's more like a feeling. And then as soon as I start it, I started painting, I feel totally abandoned, because that whatever it was is gone, and now it's just like, okay, it's just here we go, like this step and this. And like right now when I'm starting all these new paintings, you can sometimes love the thing at the beginning too much, and it's like, well, you're gonna have to ruin it to get to the next thing. Yeah,
and it's someone said, I had an intern in the studio, and she was talking about some problem that she was having at Western or with a painting, and she said, trust the process. And I thought that's such a good thing for me, because you get to that point and it's like, this does not make any sense. This is the worst thing I've ever made. And then it's like, you're almost there. Like you're almost there at that point. And then if you just keep going and adding more to, it's constant learning curve, and what's the next, I don't know, like there's that kind of flow. I hate that term when people talk about being in the studio, but it's a flow. Like you get, 8 hours go by and you haven't had a glass of water or anything like that. Like,
but sometimes it's not like that. And then sometimes it's like knowing when to wait.
Yeah.
Because there's a sense of like sometimes being like an object maker, an urgency of having to like make a thing, finish it. And obviously like finishing a painting feels amazing, but if you don't do it at the right time, then you're faking it. And there's a funny analogy in there. I lost my train of thought. Somebody else will get it.
Did the words that you write down and do the notes or the drawings that you, like, how does that actually become part of the finished artwork? Is it the title? Is it a sensibility within the context of the painting? And are the images, the actual images that you're drawing, do they actually end up in the finished piece of clay?
Like, I think for me, like with writing, because I think of painting as being like there's a philosophical element. There's a kind of like, you can't quite touch what it is. And for some reason, like, because I don't know what a painting's going to look like, it doesn't make any sense to do a study or a drawing or like really of it. But words hold so much kind of space between them that it can mean something different at different times. And so it's not pinpointing it. So that's why I think I like language, because it holds so much space of potential. And that's why, I orientate the thinking of what a painting is through words.
Because Susan, you sometimes write the words.
Sometimes. Like today I started it. Today, today's a big day. Like it's like an important date in my life. And so I was thinking about that and thinking about the person that it represents. And so I started just with there'd been some family text going around, and I just took a few lines from that, and that went onto the vessel, and then I just kind of let it kind of go from there, and I don't know, it just took on a life of its own, and that's the way. And then we'll see, because it's like that's the first step. So I kind of do these, lately I'm doing these kind of incised lines, and then I've figured out this way to do layers of the incised lines of different colors on top of each other. And so I feel like I'm really, technically I'm developing my skills. Like I'm fine tuning it to what I want my images to have, and that's enjoyable. So.
Lovely. Does anybody have any questions? And if there's anybody on the webinar as well that would like to, do they type into the Zoom? Yeah, to ask a question, and then Josh can pass around a microphone if you have any questions. Nathan has a question.
One question for Susan.
Just a sec.
Just so people can hear the question. Thank you. You said today that you think of yourself as a painter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've always thought of you as a ceramic artist, but I wonder also if you've ever thought of yourself as a sculptor. And I say this because that work, the bird there, is very sculptural.
Yeah, I guess I haven't. I tend to think of myself like I like the idea of, maybe transitioning to being a painter, but I think of myself as an artist first. And like Jennie and I we had a little conversation about, just a text conversation this week, because she referred to me as a ceramicist in something online, and I said I actually prefer artist or ceramic artist. But I haven't really considered myself a sculptor, and I guess you're right. Like those things, they are small sculptures. But then the large pieces I make, like these large, they're two-dimensional, but they have real scale to them. I don't, are they? And I don't really love the word mosaic. Like mosaic has a bad, like I'm kind of calling them friezes, like tile friezes or something, because they're not. I think it's kind of minimizing calling it a mosaic at some point. I don't know. There's amazing mosaic stuff happening, but sorry, I don't know if that answers you or not.
That's okay.
Yeah, but I do think, I guess they are sculptures. Yeah. I should make them a lot bigger. Big birds, really huge birds. So. Mm-hmm.
Oh, pardon me, sorry. Okay, so this is a question to Angie. With younger representational painters working with underpainting, there's the kind of romantic movement that seems to be happening right now. There's a predominant use of internal light or screen light, not observational light, not So there's this tension of observed and not observed. But it seems like it's a kind of a baseline in your work, that it's always a kind of fictitious light. And so that really affects the figure-ground relationship. Why is the body more of a go-to reference point in terms of its proportions and placements, and not so much of an idea of exterior light and how light falls on forms for you?
Because painting isn't for me about real life. It's not about the reality. Like, I'm not painting what we see necessarily. I'm painting the feeling of the thing and like even the object of it. Like, it's not about it existing within how our eyes see the thing. And like even the body, like I don't paint the body as the body is. A lot of the times it's like the suggestion of how you would think the body works. It's almost like when you have a dream. It's like you recognize those things as the form in itself. It's just like, that's of little interest to me as a painter.
Okay. Do you think that there's something about the kind of traditionalism of observed light that pushes you away from it?
Honestly, like I don't really have anything to say about that, because it's like it's about paint on a flat surface for me. And it's not necessarily like, yes, I'm creating like mental worlds within the painting, but I'm not borrowing off of the idea that I want to say like these are beings existing in the 3D. These are beings existing within our lives. It's more about the idea of the paint representing and existing on the canvas. Like they become different worlds that you enter through the canvas. So it's like, if that was of interest to me, then I would have become a realistic painter, but that's not something I wanted to be.
Okay, so you see kind of observational light as a push towards realism, a step too far.
No, not a step too far, just a choice of how somebody chooses to represent an idea in painting.
Right.
I'm just this makes me think of Margot Williamson's paintings because the light was so important in those paintings and in that whole exhibition. And, there was some obvious, just visual connections between your two bodies of work, I think. And I didn't hear the talk that you did at Museum London, but, yeah, she's definitely creating an environment or coming from a real memory of an environment.
And she's playing off of also like viewpoints.
Yeah.
Right? Where then the light is very important. But like I don't see like a lot of mine is about strokes and like I put a smiley face on. Like it's so so away from trying to say like I'm depicting your real life. Like I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to create the feeling and the emotion of what. Okay, so the thing is, like I've been thinking about this actually a lot in the last week. And there's this idea that like what we see visually is the representation of our lives. Like this is our reality of what we see. And then as painters, we can take that and then put that into the paintings and play off of the perceived rules of seeing. And so obviously I am making a visual object. So I am playing on the idea of the things that we see, but it's like not important to make it as though it is what we are. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just like, it's about the painterly strokes, suggesting it. And yeah, like I get what you're asking, but it's of like zero interest to me. Like philosophically interesting, but like not of like,
Like how you make a painting.
Yeah, no, we understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, dear.
I just wanted to comment about a really interesting connection in your conversation. And that was, I'll just start with when I was little and I used to go to the ROM and I used to look at the little clay sculptures, the Minoan tiles and things inscribed on a tile. And I realized, well, that's thousands of years. Those are little messages from people thousands of years ago. And so I see that in your tile work and in your painter, very like that is very much like your paintings. So that's a painting on a pot.
Yeah.
And the connection of the language from thousands of years ago being inscribed on clay, when you talked about painting and words, that words carry the poetry and meaning. It's kind of, that was a surprise to me. It was a perfectly logical leap from handling paint, but that the words were so important to you. And that's thousands of years of history. It's all past. So language is our common way of talking to each other, but that's, for you, very closely related to how you mix color and how you put it on the canvas. Is your language.
Yeah.
But don't you think, like just going off of what Catherine said, don't you think that language is, how we're communicating today and things like that? But your work as a painter or my work as an artist who works in ceramic, it's like we're still using language as different dialects. And we, your bodies of paintings have a language about them, and even the, like the intuitive nature of it, or the, carrying on, like, being a vector or something for images coming to you from the big world, like all, riding your bike home and all, like all those things. Like we're all so affected by all this stuff. but that language comes out in the, like, this body of paintings or that body of paintings. And I think, it might not be something that can be written down in words other than how someone interprets it, but it definitely has, like, we're living in pretty crazy times. So the language of your images, your created images, or my created images, they speak to the chaos of these times, kind of. And I think I find that pretty interesting. And probably putting them side by side, they might almost communicate in a different language too. Yeah.
Very nice.
Okay, I have comments for both of you. Susan, I'll start with you. I have to say, I don't know that much about your work. I'm fascinated to learn more. Probably one of the more shocking things I heard was the comment about a curator saying that we're eliminating vessels. I found that extremely shocking. I don't know how. I don't know how one does that, having spent so much of my career knowing how important the vessel is in work.
I think there's a fear in that kind of little world of Art Toronto, the current curatorial board or jury or whatever, that it's having vessels is too craft oriented.
Well, that's foolish.
Yeah, and so I agree, but it's like that's a whole different.
That's another
It's
conversation.
a very different-
I deeply understand that.
Yeah.
And I'm not a ceramic artist, but I've had a lot of dealings with them.
Yeah.
And I just find that such a small opinion for them to
Yeah.
have without knowing any more about it.
Yeah, or even with knowing a lot more about it, because chances are they probably do know a lot about it,
Yeah.
So, but I think that there's like an interesting discussion, and this is not the right kind of gallery or the whatever, is the talk about like craft and fine art, like what are the lines?
I could have an extended conversation with you about that, and perhaps we'll get an opportunity to sometime.
Yeah.
But I'm really looking forward to learning more about your work and seeing what you come up with for Museum London.
Yeah, thank you.
Very fascinated. So very interesting. Now, Angie, you are a ball of contradictions, my friend, and you'll probably say, no, you're wrong. But I love your work. I saw your work for the first time when you had your first exhibition here, and then you gave the talk in that center upstairs gallery at Museum London, and that was the smaller works, and it was like, that's interesting. I like the way she moves paint, so on and so forth. But comment on the word tenderness. You brought that up earlier. You see your work as tender. And we're sitting in a space where we're seeing pieces from the before. Upstairs are the pieces that are the just immediate past, because the now is in your studio. I see a much harder edge on this current body of work. You brought up the one with the knife.
Yeah.
It was like, oh man, that little piggy is going to market, and not in the way he thinks. That was my visceral response to that painting, and that's a much harder edge than what I've seen previously.
But the women are
Go
having
ahead.
so much fun.
Yeah,
So like
they are having fun.
I
And it's possible to have fun in all the wrong kinds of ways, as we know. So, and maybe that's not what you were intending.
No,
you
like,
can
I'm
certainly-
fine.
It's like you're the conduit, but then that's another contradiction, because it's coming out of you. So this whole conversation has been what's been revealed, and please forgive me, I'm not dissecting you.
No,
But it's just been fascinating
yeah.
to hear your process and thinking about it. And
Yeah, so-
comment if you will.
Yeah, like
Thank
for
you.
me, the work upstairs is tender, and if it's not tender to you, there's not really much I can say or do to that. I just like you see and feel it differently. not even just that body of work, I would say all my work is about tenderness. It's about the time I take in the studio making it. It's about the paint on the canvas. That's tender. Whether the image in itself is seemingly an act of violence, I would still maybe be contradicting myself and say that it's tender. No, but I also think it's tender. I don't care if they're gonna kill that pig. I still think they tenderly killed that pig. Sure, but like I don't think that where you're seeing contradiction, I'm seeing complexity.
Both can be true at once.
Sure, why not?
Are there any other questions? Josh has a question.
We have one from the Zoom chat.
Okay.
The question is, could Angie talk about the psychic watercolor performance on Thursday?
Okay.
Okay.
I must say, can I just jump in here? It was so, I mean, people talk about vibes, but man alive, was it? It was so chill. It was amazing. And she was just like, it was incredible. People were lined up and it was just the music, just everything it was a very magical experience to be witness to. So thank you for doing that for all of us.
I love doing the psychic watercolors. So like as much as I'm a painter, I like to dabble in the idea of performance. Like way back when I had a studio on Dundas, I used to on Friday nights dance at my studio window. And I liked the idea that people walking down the street could just watch me in the window dancing. And so I like this idea of intimacy with others that are people I don't know, like a stranger. And so when I had the show at the Macintosh, I don't really know how it happened. I guess there was like an offer of like, did I want to do a performance of some sort? And so I came up with this idea of psychic watercolors. And for that first iteration, it was during lockdown. So actually we had to do it through Zoom. And it was really interesting. So it was like me alone in my home. And I had one camera here and I had one camera there so you could watch the drawings. And I had to stare at each person digitally. After that, I've done it in St. Catharines twice. I've done it in Toronto. So essentially what the idea of the performance is, I invite somebody to sit in front of me and I stare at them until I call it an image in my mind, but really what I'm doing is I'm getting a feeling and then that feeling becomes an image. That's the same way that I paint. And so yeah, I live draw with watercolor and it's a fortune and I give it to the person and they can interpret it as they like. I've had 3 people cry when I've given it to them because it like meant something. I've gotten into a fight with somebody's mom over them. But I love it. Like the thing is that being in the studio alone all day, it's just like me and this whatever in the studio working. It's a very solitary practice. So I like the opportunity to invite the viewer in on this process and to actually and to play off of the idea of what is happening when we create art. What is creativity? What is the making of art? And so here me and this other person are in this deep connection and a piece of art is made. And I don't feel like that's a painting that is of mine. It's theirs. So when people get upset with me with it, I'm like, take it to your talk to yourself about it.
People were really moved.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And I feel moved. It's also a very athletic performance because it's an endurance thing. So I didn't take a single break. It was 2.5 hours, 25 people. That's almost 5 minutes with each person where I stare into at a person and create a very intimate drawing and they take it. By the end of the night, I am completely depleted, but I love it. And I love that each person, there's a spark that happens and it's very beautiful. When I did it in St. Catharines last year, I did it for 4 hours straight and it was wild and I love it. So I hope that answered the stranger on the internet.
Are there any other questions? No? Well, thank you both very much.
Yeah, thanks
Yes, and
everybody.
thank you. Very good. Thank you. Yes.